program will begin shortly. Launch sequence. Activate. Warning, the following content is not politically correct. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome in, everybody. So today I have a very special guest. She is running for the Miami-Dade Commissioner, District 10, as a Libertarian candidate, and she is host of Latin Libertinas. Is that correct?
Latin Libertarians.
Okay. And then you are also working a lot with People for Cuba, Martha Bueno.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. This is so awesome.
Yeah, thank you for joining. This is my first live stream since I've been monetized, and so it's a really special one too because we are raising money for People for Cuba, right?
Well, hopefully. So
hopefully we get people in.
Yeah, right. Hopefully. People for Cuba. So we started an organization after the July 11th protest. For those that don't know what's going on in Cuba, July 11th so Cuba's had communism for the last 62 years, right? And Fidel Castro was the unelected president. He passed away. He left it in the hands of his brother, Raul Castro. And then now it's in the hands of another unelected president, Miguel Díaz-Canel. And Cubans don't have food. Now with COVID, they're starving. There's like real desperation for things on the island. So on July 11th, there was this huge protest all around the island. It's the first time that it happened in, I think, 40 different towns. And people started going onto the streets and protesting. And typical fashion of these communist regimes, they started throwing people in jail. There's over 800 people that are missing and or in jail and or dead. And we started sending medicine to Cuba because they really don't have any people are really dying of COVID and other things. So they were already desperate before. So anything that we raise goes straight to getting more medicine into the hands of Cubans on the island. So thanks again for doing this.
Of course, it's my pleasure. Like I was telling you, I kind of always hope to be this voice for change. I'm a huge voluntarist, so it's what we can do to help, right? So I kind of want to dive a little bit into you though too, because I think it's your pinned post on Twitter, and it really captivated me. Like your parents' story, escaping for Cuba. Can you just talk about that a little bit more?
Of course. So, like I said, the situation in Cuba, it's not new. It's been happening for 62 years. So my parents were born in the mid-40s. Mid-40s. So they were young kids when the revolution happened, or, it happened in 1959. So my parents are in the late 70s. So, when you think about it, they were kids when this happened. Nobody in Cuba has voted for a president like ever. If you're under the age of 80, and even before, because they had a communistic, a dictator before. He wasn't communist, but he was a dictator before Batista. So people in Cuba are not used to this thing that we have. Anyways, longer story short, my dad, when he was, wanted to go to college, he wanted to be a veterinarian. And in Cuba, they make you take this test. And they're like, if we get to choose what you're going to go to school for. And then you have to join the communist regime in order to get your diploma. So he decided that wasn't for him and he wanted to leave, and he attempted to escape Cuba, and he got caught and he got given a 6 to 8 year sentence, of which he serves the first 6 months in a actual jail, like a prison. And then he got sent to work in the gulags. He got sent to work out in the fields. And about 6 months after that, so a total of a year sentence, my mom broke him out of jail. My grandmother had planned the whole thing, and at the last minute, she figured she couldn't do it. And my mom was like, guess I'll do it. Broke him out of jail, got him and about 12 of his closest buddies there in the jail system out, and then drove my dad to a town right outside of Guantanamo Bay, where after waiting in hideout for about a month, he jumped into the bay through an outhouse. I mean, like the story is just crazy. Like I tell people this.
Yeah.
I don't know. My mom broke my dad out of jail, and he ended up swimming about a mile to this little island between the town and Guantanamo Bay. And when he got there, there was a soldier on that island, and he reached out his hands and said, "Welcome to America."
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like something that, I mean, why isn't this a movie, you know? You could seriously make that a movie. It sounds like a movie. It's amazing.
You know what's funny though is that this story, when I tell it, I grew up hearing the story, and I always thought it was like common. And it's not until I've like really ventured out into, okay, so I live in Miami. This isn't real America. I find like anything north of us is like entering into real America. This is as close as one can get in Latin America with like, you know, in the United States, getting into Latin America, it's we have a very weird culture. So here, everyone's heard a story either like my parents or they have their own. So I thought it was just common. And it's not until now that I'm, you know, talking outside of the bubble that is Miami that people are like, really? That happens? And I'm like, I guess this is kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing about just breaking somebody out of prison seems like, how do you do that? I don't know. But it is interesting that you talk about too, because you said that they can't go into anything of their choosing. And I keep telling people this all the time. I said what the left doesn't realize in this country is that when you start paying for people's college, you're not going to be able to choose what to go for, and you're going to graduate in 4 years. That's it. That's all you get.
Right. And you don't get to choose. So that's the thing about the system in Cuba is they give you a test. And they're like, these are the 3 things that we think you're going to be good at, and choose one of these. And then once you've chosen it, it's not like you get to just go study it and then that's it. They expect something in return. Nothing in life is free.
Yeah.
So of course, you know, you study this thing, and in Cuba, it's you have to become part of the Communist Party. And most people, when I tell the story, they're like, well, what's the big deal? You just become part of the Communist Party. And it's like, no, it's not like here in the US where you're like, oh, I'm a Republican, or I'm a Democrat, or I'm a Libertarian. Yeah. And you don't have to do anything. Over there, you are part of the system. You are going to beat up people as part of, you know, you are going to spy on people. You are going to do these things. So yeah, it's not the same, and it's not good. And I don't get the obsession with free things. I don't, because they're not free.
No, and that's the thing, is they grew up in this world where they haven't seen the things that your family has seen, and other people that speak out about it. But it's interesting because when you're looking at Cuba, like the current administration said that they won't accept people from Cuba right now.
Which is insane. They will, however, take them to the Guantanamo Bay detention center and leave them there. So you can leave Cuba for freedom, but if you get caught, now you're going to be put in jail in Cuba. I mean, just the irony of the whole situation is messed up.
It is. It's interesting because they'll let anybody come across the southern border. If they can get to Mexico and come to the U.S., then they're fine, right? But if they're fleeing from Cuba to the closest place, which is Key West, then they can't, right?
No, and the crazy thing is they have to get into, most of these people that are coming here get into these unsafe vessels that they make themselves, and then travel across these straits, which is not the calmest of waters. There are sharks. There are tons of people that have perished, you know, have died in those waters. And then they make it here. And it's like, oh, wait, now we're going to send you back. Same thing with Haiti. I think there's something to be said about, you know, not only this administration, every administration we've had, there's this kind of weird dichotomy. And before it was just Haiti. Now they're throwing Cubans into this, because before then we had the wet foot, dry foot policy that was ended at the very end of Obama's term, which any Cuban that just made it to the United States could stay. And I see, like, I believe in equality across, you know, all these policies. So this is not something that I'm okay with just because it favors my people, right? I think that it should have been more fair across the board. Everyone should have a wet foot, dry foot policy. If you make it to the States, you should be able to stay here. I don't think we should have limited it to Cubans. But then to know that we're doing this to Haitians, for example, that are having just as bad a time as Cubans or Venezuelans or Nicaraguans, there's so many people that deserve to be able to reach freedom, and we're just sending them back. And I find this whole policy messed up. And now it's not kids in cages anymore now. It's detention camps. So
yeah, it is. It's left, right doing the same thing as they've always done. Because I remember, shoot, when was it? It was during the Bush administration. There was some Cubans that had come across on a boat, barely made it. A bunch of people died, but some people made it. And it was like this big controversy because the one child had made it, but his parents did.
Exactly which one you're talking. You start talking about like, so that one was. I think that was during Clinton though, because it was Janet Reno who was the person in charge. I think she was. I don't remember the seat she was in. Attorney General, I want to say. But she,
maybe
the controversy was this child's mother died in the water, right? This kid watched his mom die to give him freedom. And so make it to the US, he has family here. And then the Cuban regime, Castro at the time, found out and he grabbed his dad. And people are like, well, his dad wanted him back. You don't understand. His dad gave permission for him to leave. His dad knew what was happening. But when the Castro regime says, you're going to say that you want your son back, you're going to say you want your son back because the rest of your family could have potentially been, there was danger, I'm sure, on the island for those that didn't do what Castro wanted. Long story short, we came into this poor kid's house. There's pictures all over the internet if anyone wants to look it up. Elian Gonzalez. And they came in with these big ass guns and they just pointed in this kid's face. He was hiding in the closet with his uncle and they ripped him from his uncle's hands and sent him back to Cuba. And now he's one of the poster children for the communist regime.
Yeah, I haven't. Yeah, I just remember the story. I remember about it as well as I remember the Clinton Lewinsky scandal because I was still fairly young at the time. So I just remember, I thought it was later, but yeah, that makes sense. It's amazing. And it's been happening. It's the same thing. It's the same thing that's been happening forever. And now I actually just saw this for the first time yesterday, a hashtag hands off Cuba. Have you seen this?
I have not seen that one. What do you know what it was about? Or?
So, it's about, I think it's about the U.S. staying out of Cuban's business, and it's like lefties like all over it because I've seen hands off Cuba, hands off Venezuela, hands off all this stuff, and it's like, wait a second. And I think that they're really advocating for the U.S. to trade with Cuba again, but they're not.
Cuba, though. That's kind of the misnomer is there is an embargo. There is. But the embargo doesn't prohibit the United States from trading with Cuba. What it prohibits the United States from doing is giving credit to Cuba because Cuba doesn't pay. And because this really started back, at the beginning of the revolution or whatever you want to call it in the 50s, where Fidel expropriated a lot of American businesses and a lot of American land from Americans. So, if you had bought land in Cuba, but you were American, they would just take it from you. So there was what is equivalent to, I want to say about $20 billion US dollars worth of property that was taken. So this embargo was basically, hey, we're not going to give you credit until this is returned to the rightful owners. But it doesn't really stop us from exchanging goods into Cuba. We are the number one provider of medicine to Cuba. Yeah. And then we're also the number one provider of chicken, which is their only pretty much source of protein. So, there's this big notion out there that the United States is like, hey, nobody can trade with Cuba. Cuba can trade with just about anyone. As a matter of fact, they trade with China, they trade with Mexico, they trade with Spain, they trade with Venezuela, gives them oil, by the boatloads, literally. And so, people are like, well, if it wasn't for America, Cuba would be great. No, that's not true. The embargo in Cuba does not stop people from being able to fish, for example. That's the Cuban government. They're in an island. They're surrounded by waters filled with fish. And yet Cubans don't eat fish. They're not allowed to fish. And consequently, nobody in Cuba actually likes fish. They've never eaten it. They don't know how to eat it.
Yeah, and it's interesting, like if it wasn't for the US, then Cuba would be fine. But they don't realize they're advocating for free trade.
Yes, yes, absolutely. What I see like the left advocating for is like, hands off of Cuba, like you just said about like the US embargo. And they're like, well, if we just end the embargo, listen, you can end the embargo today. That's not going to change anything. I'm in favor of ending the embargo. Before people come and crucify me, I am definitely in favor of ending the Cuban embargo because it hasn't done anything. I mean, let's be honest. Nobody, you know, it hasn't stopped anything from happening. The United States still trades. The rest of the world still trades. The people at the top in Cuba are eating just fine. It's not hurting them. They got died one of the richest people in the world. So, I mean, the embargo doesn't do anything. But to think that the United States is the reason why people are living the way they live is just, it's ludicrous.
Yeah, and so it kind of brings it back around to like you guys being able to get medicine and stuff in there. Like, how are you guys able to do that? Because I know when there was the protest before, everything had kind of shut down. So is everything back open and running kind of as usual, or can you talk about how you're getting medicine in there?
So I'm gonna be a little bit vague because I have to be. There are several methods that we are using to get things into Cuba, but the most important thing is we get it directly into the hands of Cubans. So we can't use the reason that you see, like, for example, containers arriving in Cuba and then not going to the people is because they'll arrive and the government will take it and put it into the MLS stores, which are the stores that sell things from the government in either US dollars or in euros. We have to ship it there directly into their hands. So we use alternative methods and we're definitely getting into their hands. It's yeah, I hate to be so vague, but we are putting people's lives at risk.
No,
Discuss it directly, but it is all legal. I promise. We are using all legal methods. It's just we really we want to make sure that the Cuban government doesn't hear about which people or how we're getting it in, because again, it's a communist dictatorship. So it's like getting things into North Korea. It's the same concept.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, you don't want to put those people at risk, and that makes absolute sense. That's why I said, you know, if you can talk about it.
we can talk about all the sides of the U.S., you know, and what we're sending in. So we're sending mostly things like Tylenol and like Neosporin, like basic first aid. And I know it sounds insane, but Cubans don't even have access to those things, which, you know, for people like me that we've lived here in the United States, I mean, I just grew up with this around me everywhere. So I'm used to that being the case. But when I explain it to people, they're like, what do you mean there's no aspirin? Yeah, there's no aspirin. And so COVID is real. I mean, I know we're libertarians and we like to joke about all these things, but COVID is really real and it's happening. And so these people don't have any medications if it does happen. So pneumonias and things of that nature, antibiotics, nobody has it in Cuba. And if you can find it, it's costing about $300 a dose. And you put that in perspective, Cubans make about $40 a month. So you're talking about almost their entire year's salary to be able to afford one treatment for antibiotics. So if your child is sick, if you're sick, if you have a family member is sick, there's really no way to purchase it. So we've been getting large doses of antibiotics into Cuba, which is the thing that I am most proud of that I've done in my life thus far. We've gotten about 1,000 pounds of medicine so far into Cuba, and a lot of that has been antibiotics and things that people absolutely need.
Yeah, it really is amazing what you guys are doing. I've been kind of watching for a while because I know Spike was down there helping you guys raise money, and
love that guy.
Yeah, I know. I had him on the show a few weeks ago, and I told him that you won the contest. Actually, I had the picture actually pulled up.
What picture? What contest did I win? Oh. I love him though. You know, he wore that boot shirt really well.
Yeah, I know, right?
Psycho, it is definitely one of the most amazing. I hate to use the word politician because I don't feel like either of us are, but he is definitely one of the greatest politicians I think ever, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. He's one of those people that can bring everybody together. Everybody likes him. Everybody, and he just makes so much sense whenever he speaks. So and
hearing him speak, I mean, this guy is like brilliant. I mean, he's just, I really enjoy him. I do sound like his cheerleader. And I'm like, yes, like, you can do no wrong. I'm sure not even his wife, Tasha, who is hello. She's gorgeous and wonderful and sweet and kind. I mean, they're just like the greatest couple. I have two that I'm like fawning over. Matt and Mary Kay are the other ones, and then the Coens.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, I had him on after hearing him speak in Michigan, and yeah, it was an amazing conversation. I love talking to him and everything like that. And he I know he's done a lot, even just he goes and does stuff for everybody's organizations too. So he's truly living up to what it means to be, you know, a voluntarist and everything like that. So he truly is.
I don't think he's going to run for president. I just have to say this makes me very sad, and also I think that it's probably because we don't deserve Spike Cohen. We don't. I'm sorry.
We don't.
For a like 80-year-old man who doesn't even know his name. We do not deserve Spike Cohen.
No, we really don't. You know, that's why we just need the great divorce to happen, and then we can get a Spike Cohen in one of these areas, right?
I want to move to wherever Spike Cohen is our president. I'm just saying that, like, whatever side of the country Spike Cohen is the president, that's my side.
You will leave beautiful Miami to go be with Spike Cohen.
Oh no, Spike Cohen's moved down here. And I need everyone to get on top of like Tasha. She's not on social media though, so I can't like send an army out to be like, Tasha, you need to move to Miami. She's okay with Florida, but she refuses to move to Miami. And I want him to Miami. I'm going to be greedy and say Spike Cohen needs to move to Miami.
Okay, so everybody watching, screenshot this, send it to Spike, and have him show it to Tasha. There we go.
There you go. Yes, be like, Tasha, I'm sorry, we just have to move to Miami because Martha.
We voted. We all voted.
He's very funny. The thing I think most people don't realize is that who he is on social media is exactly who he is in person. And that level of just comedy happens all the time. So he says that he has to complete his character arc as a retired Jew. And I hope that this isn't offensive. I'm only repeating what Spike said. Okay, so please, I'm just the messenger. But he says that his character arc as a retired Jew, so now he needs to move to Miami Beach to finish it off. And I'm going to agree with him.
And there you go. There you go. Okay. Well, so back to the topic.
Was there a topic? I'm sorry, I'm like hijacking this whole interview.
No, I think I took it in that direction. It was okay. I took that direction. I mentioned that you won the contest, and that took it in that way.
Again,
but it kind of ties into.
It's just.
We had to give some shout outs, you know. So we had talked because it's interesting because we're talking about medicine, and I know you had commented even in your retweet of this episode today that you watched my episode about Dave Chappelle's special.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting about all of this, and it ties into medical, is everybody likes to play that Cuba has free medical, yet you were having to send medical supplies over there. Like, that's the biggest thing, like why LGBT people think that Cuba would be great for trans people, because they give free, you know, all free trans surgeries and stuff like that. It doesn't make any sense.
This is true though. They do offer it in theory. In theory, if you are Cuban and you want a surgery, they will give it to you. However, you have to wait for the supplies to be available. So, for example, sutures aren't available. They don't have anesthesia available. They don't have oxygen. There was this big news story when COVID started like really hitting a few months ago that there's no oxygen. How do you have a surgery if the oxygen plant is down and they can't even get it for COVID patients? They can't get it.
Yeah.
There's this kid that has become a friend of mine on the island. I say kid, but he's 26. He has cystic fibrosis, which, if you know, it's a lung condition. And his lungs often don't work, and he needs oxygen, and he couldn't get it. We actually had a whole bunch of people from the U.S. just calling nonstop to try and get him oxygen anywhere we could find it on the island. So, that's the problem. So, yes, technically, you can have whatever surgery you like. Unfortunately, you'd have to wait for it to be available to you, which will probably never happen. And then there's another issue with Cuba that I think I would really, if you don't mind, let's bring it up. Let's clear the air here, because I see a lot of people in the LGBT community talking about Che Guevara, and you see people with face on their shirts, they're like, he's wonderful and Che Guevara's great. And I just have to say, if you are LGBTQ and you like Che Guevara, you need to go and inform yourself on him. He wrote letters to his father, and he wrote books, and they're published, and you can read it in his own words, how he hated people of color and people that were LGBTQ. So I guess we're talking about, 50s and 60s. So he was talking about just gay at the time. That was the prominent, he didn't know, yes, or wasn't informed, but he would talk about gay men as inferior to him. And he would talk about it and say that he enjoyed killing them. And here I've seen pride flags with his face on it. And I don't get it. Please, somebody explain it to me. Where along the line did he become the face of this movement? He's the opposite of the face of the movement. He literally talks about wanting to kill gay people. I don't get it.
It doesn't make any sense because, like, I don't know where, Antifa and just leftists in general, they go off this rant and they idolize these people who they don't support the values that they supposedly, espouse and everything like that. Because Che is a prime example of that, but there's a number of them, like Mao, for example. He's another one. It's like, are you kidding? Like, these people killed many people, millions of people. Yeah. And Che was very well known as everything, I guess they believe.
Yeah, he talks about this in his letters to his father, about how he would put a gun to a man's head and enjoy the feeling of pulling the trigger. And again, he would do this to people of color or people that he felt were inferior, and among them, he considers the community inferior. So I don't know. It's one of those big head scratchers for me, and I just want somebody to explain it to me. Like Jay-Z famously was out photographed with a picture of Che Guevara, a shirt with Che Guevara on it. Like, did nobody pull him aside and say, "Hey, Jay-Z, let me explain"? Or is he, I don't know, racist against us? I don't know.
Well, I think a lot of time these people that, idolize communism as a whole, they're kind of in this, they think that this is this utopia thing. Because I don't know any communist regime that has been, good to LGBT people in general, and never in our history. Look at what's going on in China right now. We can look at China in and of itself and say they're taking, as they called them, sissy men off TV. That's not that. That's a communist country that is, and they idolize they idolize China. Like, it makes absolutely no sense. But I think that they think that if we do it here, they would have the power. Because if you remember when they set up the Antifa zone or whatever it was in Portland last year, what happened? There was a Che wannabe that kind of propped himself up as the authoritarian, the person that was going to make things happen in the country, that was going to force everybody to pull their weight type thing. So I think that they think that would be them.
But see, that's the thing. That's exactly the thing with communism, is the people at the top, they have access to all of those things. So the people at the top in Cuba right now eat wonderfully. They eat like you and I do. They have lobster, and they have access to everything. And that movie that Michael Moore made, I don't know if people are familiar with it, but Michael Moore made a movie. He's that Canadian director that did Bowling for Columbine and a few other movies. Yeah. He did one on Cuba, and he's like, look at this healthcare. It's magnificent. He went to the one hospital in Havana that is where Fidel and Raul and all these people, these prominent people at the top, are able to get attention. As a matter of fact, Hugo Chavez from Venezuela, who was also a communist, who died after getting treated in Cuba, by the way, it's ridiculous. But that's the hospital he went to, and he's correct. That hospital is going to be as top of the line as any hospital here in the U.S. Now, I dare him to go to the hospital where my family would go to in Palma Soriano, or in Santiago, in Holguín, or in Matanzas, or anywhere along Cuba. Yeah. Where you don't have access to these things. You know,
Yeah, it's like you said, going into North Korea. Like even like when Lisa Lang went into North Korea and showed like they risked imprisonment just for showing like videotaping when they weren't supposed to videotape. So the Cuban regime is going to show you what they want you to see. So of course that's what they're going to show.
I mean, don't we all do that to some degree? If you invite somebody over, you have like a real nasty room, you're going to close that door. You're going to be like, no, that room off limits. We all do this. You know, it's not different. They're just like, hey, these few blocks in Havana with our restored buildings, with all these nice things, this is where you should come visit because this is pretty. Or go to Varadero and go see our wonderful beaches. And those things are fantastic. Now go see that nasty room in the, you know, which happens to be the rest of the island. It's the way people live. So I have family that live there, and they don't even have running water. Most Cubans don't have access to running water. They expect once a month, there's a truck that comes by and you fill up your tanks once a month, one time a month for your entire household. And it depends on the size of your tank. So most people don't have regular showers. I don't know. It's such a terrible system. I really wish people could experience it, however briefly, so that they can be like, yeah, maybe this isn't as great as they're telling us it is. And it's not. It's, I wish it was different. I wish that I could say that my family eats a meal every day. If I show you what Cubans are entitled to purchase, because it's not free, what they're entitled to purchase, they have this booklet that the Cuban government says, hey, this is what you can have. And so every person in Cuba is entitled to 5 eggs a month. Imagine 5 eggs a month. After you turn 7, you're no longer entitled to milk. So I don't know about you, but I just had my husband go buy milk. I'm like, we need milk. We're running out of milk because I need coffee with milk in it every day. Like if you're over 7, you don't get to have milk. You get, I believe it's 2 pounds of chicken per month per person, 1 dinner roll per day. I mean, 1 bottle of oil a month per person. So it's very limited what people can eat and drink and have. And really sad. It's really sad. And for anyone in the United States to be like, that's the system that we should be aiming for is unfortunately really misguided.
Yeah, I know. And that's the thing is like, so when everything kind of opened back up, I know a bunch of people that went and visited Cuba, but it's the same thing. They're seeing like the nice areas and all that stuff. But I can only even imagine it being like when I went to Punta Cana in Dominican Republic. It was like, these nice resort areas. And then you go on we went on like a little excursion. You kind of go into the island a little bit more and you have 10-year-olds, Haitian kids chopping sugarcane. It's completely different than what you're actually seeing when you go there just as a tourist. So that's all that's all I can link it to.
Yeah. Cubans don't really have access to machinery. So things like tractors to be able to cut down the sugar cane, they don't have that anymore because all the tractors, the last time they had access to like the free market and, being able to buy stuff was before this communist dictatorship, not because of an embargo, but because the government just doesn't care to make sure that people are able to farm. And also the government is the only person that can sell this. So if you're a farmer and you farm it, the government takes your entire crop. You don't even have enough for yourself. So there's no incentive for people to go out and bust their behind cutting, cane sugar by hand with a machete. So as time has progressed, every year there's less and less and less crops. So not only is there less food, but who's going to do this job? Who's going to go cut sugar cane or raise cattle when there's nothing to feed the cows? Or, it's such a terrible system. It really is. We can talk about it all day. I know that we've already beat that horse.
No, it's fine.
It's a terrible system, and I don't get how people like it or want it.
So, because it's kind of, it lived its life in the news cycle, right? And we know how the news cycle works when things stop being relevant, and they actually didn't even really cover this very much. So what's still going on? I know there's the 15 November scheduled. So what is still happening in Cuba, and what's going on? Like you said, a bunch of people are missing. So like, what do we actually know that's not being put out in the media right now?
Okay, so what you're missing. So from that July 11th protest, people who went out and protested, a lot of people were taken off the streets. They still are. They're still being cited and said, you have to present yourself here. And then they go in and, they potentially can be tried. They're given quick trials. Lots of young kids too. Ooh, one of the things that I don't think a lot of people realize is that 16, 17, and 18-year-olds were given year sentences or multiple year sentences for their role in protesting. And mind you, this was peaceful protesting. We're not talking about breaking things or anything. This is just protesting. There are several 16-year-olds in jail along with the rest. So anyways, they went out, they protested. The government came back and actually the government went into their homes and killed them. There's actually videos of this that you can find online. So now what's the next step? Well, the cat's out the bag. Cubans are not going to back down. They want their freedom and they're going to keep fighting for it. But again, they don't have guns. They don't have, there's only one party allowed in Cuba. You're not even allowed to, for example, we have a Libertarian Party, believe it or not, in Cuba. And these people are some of the bravest people. And my co-host on Latin Libertarians and Libertario Final, Zach Foster, who is an amazing human being. He's part of somebody who started the Libertarian Party in Cuba. Those libertarians have all been to jail many times, like many times. Anyways, lots of people are putting together this. Originally it was going to be the 20th of November. And because the government in Cuba said, well, the last time you guys didn't ask for permission, that's why we put you in jail. So they didn't ask for permission, but they cited where in the Cuban Constitution it was their right to protest. And they turned in letters all around Cuba. And so the Cuban government saying, oh, well, you guys are going to protest November 20th. We're going to do military exercises the 18th, 19th, and 20th. We're going to line the streets with military people. Go ahead and have your protest. So then Cubans were like, fine, we'll just do it the 15th. Now, the 15th is an important date because that's the date that the airports open back up. Currently, there's about 5 flights a day into and out of Cuba. On November 15th, they're going to open the floodgates back up again, and it's going to go back to its usual, maybe 100 flights a day. So we're expecting that November 15th, people are going to start flooding into Cuba, and they're going to have, unfortunately for them, if they go, a very rough time because Cubans are going to be out protesting again. And I don't know what's going to happen, but it's probably going to be pretty big. Oh, and side note there, the Cuban government is the only one that controls the cell phone companies. They also said that they were going to be having technical issues those days. They're going to be revamping their system or something. So we're expecting that the Cuban government is going to make it very difficult for those videos to get out of what they are doing. But they're already posting pictures and videos on social media where they are arming people of the communist government, of the people who are of the Communist Party. They are arming them with either bats or guns and preparing them for what's going to happen. The president, because he was unelected, Miguel Díaz-Canel of Cuba, on TV after the July 11th protest said that he was giving combat orders and that the streets belong only to the revolutionaries, which means the people that are in favor of this communist government. He gave an order that the Cuban government, the military, can do whatever it needs to control the situation. He essentially incited a civil war. And it's infuriating that we have people being taken off of Twitter every day for dumb jokes. I don't know if you're familiar with Reed Coverdale, but his account was just pulled.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
His account was just pulled for some dumb joke. But this guy, again, unelected president, I hate you saying president because he's not the president. This unelected president of Cuba says, go out and beat your fellow man. And he's allowed on Twitter nonstop. Twitter, Facebook, all of his stuff is fine. So, it's just infuriating.
Yeah. Oh, that's the worst part about it is because they let the Taliban, they let anybody they want. That's not American, but say what they want on Twitter. You know, they practice free speech, but they don't actually have free speech in their country, but we do, and they silence us.
Yeah, they silence us. I mean, we aren't allowed to say whatever joke, and I have no idea what joke Reed said. Don't get me wrong. It might have been horrible. I have no idea. But is there anything really more horrible than going on national TV and saying, go execute your fellow man? And that guy's still, you know, able to tweet, and he does, and he tweets a whole bunch of stuff. I love to just kind of annoy him. And yeah, that's like my pastime is he retweets, he says anything, and I'm like, you're an idiot.
So you're just his troll, which is great. I mean, they all need that.
We
all troll Kamala and Joe Biden as well, you know. So I mean, it's just what you do, and they need it.
Right. I mean, seriously,
it's what keeps you from going insane, right?
Yes. I wish that was enough. I feel like I'm still going a little insane. I think we're all, you know, these past 2 years have been rough. Not gonna lie, I think they're just rough on all of us. But I also am excited, and maybe it's just me, but you know, I've been a libertarian for a while now, and I didn't really get involved in the party until 2016, until Gary Johnson. But I used to tell people I'm a libertarian, and they'd be like, "You're a what? What is that? Oh my God!" And now they're like, "You're a libertarian? You guys are crazy." Or people are like, "Yeah, I think those libertarians. I think we're going to start joining." So like, I see the momentum. I see like this excitement for something else, and I'm like, maybe it's happening. Maybe.
Yeah, I've said this a few times. Like, I get, you know, white pilled and black pilled. Like, I jump back and forth on a daily basis because every once in a while it's just kind of like, you know what? I see some momentum coming. Like it's happening. Like people are waking up.
To be libertarian now. I have to say it's a little bit cool. Like before we used to be we were like the uncool kids, and now it's like, oh, you're a libertarian?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like now you have people on both sides that don't like you, which is always a good thing because you're like, okay, that means we're doing something right. You know, it's not just like
both
people
sides that like you too. It goes
exactly. Well, exactly. Oh, exactly. I mean, and it also it's libertarians are really interesting because we have such different backgrounds. Like I'm a former conservative and I still hang out in a lot of conservative circles, but then I have people that I'm friends with that are libertarians that are former liberals and they still hang out in liberal circles. So it's just really interesting mesh, but then we all get each other. Like we're all friends. So we're kind of the mesh of everything.
Because we take the good from both sides, I feel like with what Republicans are supposed to be, right? Like the small fiscal conservatives, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I like that side. And then with the Democrats, it's like, you know, they agree with gay marriage and marijuana and all these things. And I'm like, yes, right thinking.
Or they used to. Or they used to until they get power, which is kind of how they both work. They're for these things until they get power. Because we have not heard a thing about marijuana.
I like the Libertarian Party. So the other side of my cup,
on
this side. But this one, supporting equality since 1971. And I know I'm probably preaching to the choir, but our very first presidential candidate, John Hospers, was, and remember, this is 1971, so being openly gay was a problem.
Yes.
But he, amongst libertarian circles, everyone knew he was openly gay. Our very first presidential candidate in 1971 was a gay man. And who was his running mate? A woman. And they're the first people, first libertarians to receive an electoral college vote. So, you know, the first woman in American history to receive an electoral college vote, a libertarian. I'm just so proud of that.
Just throw it out there. Yes. That's a great stat to have.
It is. But here's the thing. Like, I've been preaching this for a long time. I'm like, guys, all of these friends that we have that are LGBT, and it's like, why are you voting Democrat? Well, we have to vote Democrat because of our rights. Which rights are you protecting with them? Because I feel that they're not protecting your rights. We libertarians, we believe in all of those rights. We believe in equality across the board.
Yeah. It's We are. I mean, it is, and it gets everybody in trouble because then we infight because some people are not libertarian enough, and some people are too libertarian, and
You're not a real libertarian. I love that. I find that so great.
You know what people don't realize too? It's amazing that like gay rights and inequality took so long to get in this country, and it was really globally too, when it's very well known that Baron von Steuben, who was the Prussian general who went to and trained the troops before they Washington crossed the Delaware, it was very well known that he was a gay man. And so it's really, yeah. So he's like the first gay man. He was he was like the forgotten founding father too. So I mean, he was just the one who taught the troops that changed the whole for the Revolutionary War. So that's why I named my my company and everything is named Steubens Ltd because of him. So that's why it's named that.
Oh, I love that. I had no idea. I love that history. And that's the thing, you know, like to me, it's just what you do in your personal life is your personal life. Same thing with me. Like, I don't get people's fascination with what other people are doing, one way or the other. I don't get it. Pardon me. Maybe there's something wrong with me. I don't get caring so much about somebody else. I mean, we even have laws on the books about like sodomy. By golly, whatever people do in their bedroom is their problem. Like, imagine having a law like you can't do this in your bedroom, and who's going to find out?
Yeah, exactly. That's and some of those laws are still on the books, which is really interesting. But
it's like, oh, I mean, okay, you can stop me. Go ahead.
But that's the thing about, especially with our rule of law, how it is now. That there's so many laws on the books that like are just seen as normal stuff nowadays. Like you could go through. I actually even looked. Somebody posted like constitutional amendments that were shot down throughout the years, and I was like, and you just look at them, you're like, when would you like? Really, you proposed that like stuff? And it was stuff like sodomy laws and stuff like that. You know,
there's so many problems. Why aren't we fixing those problems? Why are we focused on what other people do with their own bodies, like drugs?
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I'm not saying drugs are good, but you're going to put somebody in jail because they decided to use a plant. Like, let me ruin your life for you because you may potentially ruin your life. Like, what are we doing? Who's in favor of these things? And that's really the problem I have with this is the government's like, hey, we need to take this money from you in forms of taxes to then create all these jails so we can take the freedoms of your fellow man because they decided to smoke a plant. Who in their right mind is like, that's somebody I want to vote for because
it works right. Yeah, and that I mean, it's great. I mean, yeah, they think it's going to work, and they never work. I mean, we always know that it only creates more crime. Right. It opens the avenues for all organized crime. And where is it? Is it Portugal? Portugal has the best system when it comes to
all drugs in the 90s.
Yeah.
They are doing fantastic. Whenever people tell me, oh no, we can't decriminalize drugs because that's just going to be chaos. It's like, go look up Portugal. Go for it.
Yeah. Because they decriminalized, and what people don't realize is they did. I mean, it was absolutely the smartest thing you could do. It's like if you have more than like a 2-week supply on you, then you go in front of a council to see if you should be going to rehab. It's like you fix the mental issues that come with it.
Here in the United States, we have a real problem, and that problem is we don't have mental health for people. So I have a very close family member who is addicted to meth. So I've been down this road personally, and I still advocate for, legalization, decriminalization, actually. I do not want anybody in jail over this, especially somebody who's an addict. If you get picked up by police and your judge is a good judge, your judge may allow you to go to rehab instead of jail. But by and large, if you look at our jail system, the majority of addicts go to jail. And that's not a place for addicts. That is not, I can't imagine the type of people that wrote those laws and that were like, you know what addicts deserve? You know what people deserve when they're in the worst part of their life? That we kick them when they're low. That's what we're gonna do. That's how
we give them a criminal record, you know?
Yeah. We're like, you know what? You'll never be hired again. You'll never be able to be back in society. Oh, you would like a gun? That's not acceptable. You know, you can't have that.
Yeah.
Either. We mess up people's lives because of an addiction, but we don't do that for alcohol. No. Nope. Alcoholics get to go to AA and they get support, but drug addicts, wow. Let me tell you what we're going to do with you. And it's so disgusting. I'm so tired of this system.
Yeah.
It's so cruel and heartbreaking.
Well, and it just then it has created, you know, more dangerous drugs on top of it. Like, and I don't know if I've ever spoke about this on here because I'm very much with you. My cousin died of a heroin overdose, but it was so laced with fentanyl that it was, I mean, and that's what we're seeing right now. And I used to DJ and I still hang out in the rave scene, and like, there's a huge issue going on with everything being cut with fentanyl right now. So everything is becoming more dangerous, to where if it was just legalized, you wouldn't have these issues because it wouldn't be underground and everybody wouldn't be trying to get their cut.
Well, I live in Miami, so we have Ultra, the music festival here. And of course, now with COVID, we haven't had it. But every year, the issue we have is there's always a few deaths, right? And they're always somebody in their early 20s. And it's always drugs that were laced with something else. I mean, it's just, it's so frustrating because these people don't have to die. And they're young kids. They're going to go try, you know, a Molly, or they're going to go try whatever. And it could be safe. Yeah. They could go to a CVS, buy this drug, a CVS, a Walgreens, whatever, and buy this drug, and it would be clean. And then they would take it and they'd probably have a good time, or not, because there's a reason. There's a reason people do drugs. Let's just put that out there. I hate this whole notion of like evil people are the ones that do drugs. No, people do drugs because they want to and because they will, and everyone, you know, has their reason for doing it. But saying that it's okay for kids to die because they decided to try a drug, I can't get I can't.
No, absolutely, I agree, and it's and so that's where that's where the right has an issue on their hands as well, because it's this culture, and that's their culture, is to, you know, not feel bad for people when they try stuff. Yet now it seems like more people on the right and stuff are okay with marijuana, which is like 80% or something like that. And now you're starting to see more support for stuff like psychedelics and stuff like that, which I've heard recently, like some psychedelics are even starting to get cut, which is like, no, that's supposed to be the good stuff. You know, that's supposed to be the stuff that makes you feel good.
How do you cut a mushroom? That's what I want to know. How do you
I don't know.
A mushroom. I hope that at least that's clean-esque.
I would hope, yeah. I mean, but if you get caught with it, if you get caught growing it, you know, you get all these things. And now they're starting to research a lot of this stuff again, because
it's like, good. Like, here's the crazy thing is we've been told all these bad things. I just retweeted today a study that says that cannabis is showing to help people who are suicidal. So there's a decrease in suicides in legal states. Why isn't this all over the news? My golly, we have so many people in this country. You know, before COVID started, because now it's even higher, but before COVID started, from our soldiers coming back from war, we had 22 soldiers every single day on average in this country commit suicide. Think about that. We send these kids off to war and they don't die in war. They come home to die. And they come home to die because they are miserable with PTSD. And what do? We say, here's an entire bag of opioids. Go have a great time with it. And we cause this addiction problem. Like, we are so evil. When you look at what we're doing to people, it's evil. And there's 38 states currently that have a form of legality in cannabis. And yet 19 states have just said that Delta 8, which is a legal form of cannabis because it's derived from hemp. And because of the 2018 hemp bill, Delta 8 is legal because anything derived from hemp is now legal. 19 states have said, not for you. You can't have this. And Colorado is amongst them. Colorado and Texas.
That's interesting, It's interesting because some of the states that it's legal, where marijuana is legal, Delta 8 is not. But states like Georgia, where I live, Delta 8 is completely illegal still. Like, and actually, it's really interesting because, and this is part of like Shane Hazel's initiative as well, going to local governments and getting them on board. So all the counties around Atlanta have basically said they will not enforce marijuana laws. They said they can't because they can't tell the difference. So they're not going to enforce it. And that's why getting local and doing all that stuff is really important. So getting involved in your local elections like you are doing in Miami, getting people that even no matter what the laws are, you can have the local police forces not enforce those laws.
Yeah. I mean, that would be my goal. Of course, I'm running for a seat where there would be 13. There's 13 people total. So if I win, I'd be one of 13. So am I able to affect all the changes that I want? Probably not. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sit here and be like,
yeah,
vote for me and everything's going to be great. No, because I'm just not going to lie to you. But yeah, that's the goal. The goal is to at least have that voice and to be sitting on that council and say, no, this is wrong, or this is what we should be doing. We need people who care. I think that's the bottom line. We need people who care. And I'm noticing in the comments that microdosing with shrooms and LSD, yes. So I also work with groups that medical doctors who are researching, let's not call them shrooms, they're psilocybin, LSD, and surprisingly ketamine. So ketamine used to be a huge club drug, and I think it still is. Not advocating for
they
that.
all are. They all are.
They all are. But I'm not advocating for that. However, in a clinical setting with a doctor, ketamine in 3 doses has been shown to take people who are like suicidal, extremely suicidal, I think is what the condition is called, where they will just continuously try to commit suicide. Like there is no saving them. We do not have any medicine right now that can actually cure them or help them. But ketamine is showing to do it. So, I mean, it's just even more insulting to me that we have these prohibition things on medicines that are working that could help people.
And I did some research on this stuff as well. And it's quite amazing. I was going to say this too, is because LSD is now being researched again. It opened up for research, I think 2 years ago, because they think it could be the holy grail for mental health medications. They think, I mean, it's shown great results against PTSD. So when you said that, I was thinking, PTSD, it's been shown to cure alcoholism. It's been shown, and like they said, it's been shown to help with a lot of other addictions. So this is the comment. It's for everybody, but it's been shown to help with a whole bunch of other addictions. And what's really interesting is it's impossible to get addicted to. Right. It's impossible to overdose on. And so really the way that it works in the brain, there is no long-term effects, whereas even you have, those long-term effects when it comes to alcohol and everything like that. It's like, because normal drugs change the way they create synthetic serotonin, whereas these drugs change, they grab onto the serotonin receptors, and as your serotonin goes in, it changes the way that your body sees that serotonin or processes that serotonin. And so that's why it doesn't kill those brain cells as it goes in, like most other drugs.
Right.
Most opioids do that.
Think about like LSD and things. There's evidence that shows that your neurons in your brain actually find new connections and regenerate on these substances. So, I mean, there's just so much information coming out that these are good things. And also, nobody's ever died from any of these drugs. So cannabis, LSD, shrooms, nobody's actually died from those. Meanwhile, 80,000 people in the United States every year die of alcohol poisoning. And that's not including traffic, drinking and driving type of thing. So 80,000 people. Remember, this whole COVID thing is, if we can just save one life, well, how about those 80,000 lives? What about them? Aren't they worthy of being saved? So I just, it's absolutely horrible what we've done in this country. And that's really the thing that just keeps me up at night is, think about the millions of Americans that we've taken their freedoms from them. fathers, mothers, daughters, brothers, like kids that grew up with their dad because their dad was in jail because they sold an ounce of marijuana in 1970 something, like some horrible, horrible, horrible stuff that happens in this country. And we're just like, okay, well, we let it go. And I really wish people were paying attention. And I really wish we could do something to stop that practice. I mean, obviously libertarians, but we're far away from that. We got to keep banging that drum and being like, guys, there's a group of people that just wants you to live in freedom.
And that's, so even just kind of shifting a little bit, that kind of really pissed me off today, because I thought it was great watching Andrew Yang split from the Democrat Party, right?
Yeah.
And then today he comes out and his ego was so big today. He's like, he goes, it's so amazing to see that before the Forward Party, there was no other third parties. And you're going, actually the LP National tweet below it was like, dude, we've been here for years.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised, to be honest. I'm not surprised at all. It's like, oh, there's only two parties is the thing that we hear all the time. As libertarians, I'm sure you've heard it so many times. It's like, really? There's only two? Well, there's also the Green Party, and we libertarians right here. And then there's the Constitutional Party. There's just so many parties in this country. But the laws are really messed up against,
and we're working. I mean, here in Georgia, we just had a big win in terms of voter access too. So the petition got lowered tremendously. So it'll be a lot easier to get on the ballot
too. Like,
what's that?
Do you know where it got lowered from? And then
I would have to go back and look at Ryan's stuff, but I think it was from maybe 5% to 1%.
Oh, good. So like a good chunk.
Yeah, it was a big chunk.
Because I mean, like Tennessee is some of the most, like the worst laws I've seen for ballot access. So Republicans and Democrats get on the ballot like 25 signatures, like some like doesn't even matter a number. And then libertarians have to collect like 56,000 petitions, which takes 2 years and like $1 million or something, or $2 million. Like it's some crazy amount of petitions. So, and then people are like, well, why aren't you guys doing more? Well, because we spend all the time trying to comply with these dumb rules that don't help us any. But this is what happens when you only elect these people and they only write rules that benefit them. You know?
Absolutely. Which is why it was great, though, because Andrew Yang was here in Atlanta, I think last weekend or the weekend before or something like that. And Chase Oliver, who is our Senate candidate next year, went down there and actually met with him and was talking to him after the show, I think, and was actually wanting to talk to him more about, and maybe we can work together on ranked choice voting and stuff like that, because he is a big proponent now of ranked choice voting. So we're like, let's work together.
Did he agree to it? Did anything come up?
I don't know, but I know Andrew Yang, I mean, when he announced this Forward Party, he had been talking about ranked choice voting and stuff. So it seems like something that's pretty natural that he's for already, that we should be working together on.
And I think it's great. And the more parties that are working on this to break the duopoly, I think the better. What a great person to go out there and speak. Somebody who was a Democrat, who no longer is, who's saying, hey, this system is messed up. Great. Finally, we're not the only ones saying this. Finally, there's a voice, somebody else. And I think Tulsi Gabbard at some point also said something similar about how the system is bad. So, I mean, people are coming out. People that have gotten shafted from the other party are like, hey, this, we really need to fix this. So I'm kind of glad it's happening. It's just, it's an uphill battle. And if Andrew Yang thinks he's going to be able to have 50 state ballot access all on his own, I wish him luck. But I think he probably should look at, I'd say join the Libertarian Party, but I don't think he'd become a presidential candidate for us anytime soon.
No, I don't even think he would be a candidate for us, because he still is on this whole UBI concept and everything like that, which... UBI
can be a libertarian concept, by the way. I think, was it Milton Friedman? I can't remember which economist talked about this, and I'm probably going to get flogged for this because, libertarians, you should know the economists.
You should know everything.
Yes, I should know all of them. So I'm not recalling which one at the moment, but there's one that advocated for UBI. And it can be libertarian in the sense that like everybody has, you know, this number, like everybody gets X number of dollars every month, but then you actually have to like work for more. So you're, and I'm not advocating for it at all.
Yeah.
But it's like the reverse almost of taxes. So everybody gets taxed and then they return your money. In this case, it's kind of like everybody gets a certain level of money. And then, you know, at the end of the year, you work out your taxes or something. There's a way for it to be libertarian. I can't say that I've gone too far into it and I'm not sure how it would work. But if that's the solution, listen, if you just removed all of the dumb things that the United States government pays for, and we could like a voluntary UBI, yes, like a voluntary UBI. But again, don't quote me on this because I don't know. This isn't my concept, guys. I have no idea. I am not a proponent of it. But I think that if we could maybe, you know, changing the taxes a bit, if we had to pay a certain number of dollars and we could choose like a GoFundMe, hey, I want to pay for this war, or I want to pay to help this thing, or to build roads, or to build a school, or to, I think that would be a much better system. And then
I am very much in favor of more of a crowdfunding government type thing, you know. But or if we, I said it would. Oh yeah, it would be so much better. Honestly, even if we could just like, we all still pay the same amount of taxes and everything like that. But then like every bill that went up, like it had a dollar amount, and you just take your tax dollars and put it onto like what you want to pay for, and then it's like okay, like then you know what gets funded, you know, and stuff like that. But that would, I mean, that's again not advocating. That's not ideal, but
no, it's not. But that's something that you could do with the technology that's coming out. So the blockchain is not only for money, but also there's this whole smart contracts, and there's these communities that could be funded with, you know, you could voluntarily fund, and then you could vote with your token for what you want funded. So there's all this technology that's coming out that I think is the future of governance. I don't think we need government. I think we need governance. And there's a difference there. And that is people voluntarily choosing how they want their society to work rather than a group of people that just tells you how it has to work. And you look at our government was created back when we didn't even have telephones, when we didn't have a way to communicate. We were using carrier pigeons. So of course it made sense to get everybody together in a room and they made decisions for you. Fast forward, we don't need that system anymore. We can vote for ourselves. We can say what we want.
Yeah, and I agree. I think especially at the federal level, we don't need the federal government. Like I'm very much a minarchist, and so it's like, really, what do we need? We need maybe an army to protect our borders, you know, and that's about it. And then
police from within, police from without type of thing.
Yeah, like I think like an army, and then you have like local like court systems, like to settle this, you know, NAP violations and stuff, you know.
So then that would open up a whole can of worms. Like, do you agree beforehand before you go into transit? I don't know. That's too far out into this like libertarian utopia, so I haven't quite crossed that bridge. But I think that
we better not go too far, because then we'll be getting the hate mail. So
right, like, oh my God, you guys hate poor people, and all you want to do is you know, keep poor people down. And I'm like, where does this come from? We just want people to be able to decide what to do with their money. Call me crazy, but if I have to work 4 to 5 months out of the year for the government, I hate to use this word, but I don't have another word for it. That's like slavery. That's like part-time slavery. You know, you are working. If you know, every year there's a day published, and it's like April 18th or 15th. It's around tax day. Funny, you know, where you actually stop working for the government and start working for yourself. And so, you know, based on what you owe the government, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny that you work 4.5 months out of the year for the U.S. to pay the U.S. government, and you don't have an option. You know, if you're making money, you've got to pay the United States government, or you're going to go to jail. I don't know what else to call this system, but it's not like this kumbaya that they make it seem, oh, it just comes out of your paycheck.
No.
Imagine what you could do with an extra 4 months salary.
Yeah. And I'm fully for like a constitutional amendment where you have to pay you have to do to get rid of withholdings. Like, you pay your taxes every quarter. Because they know that as soon as you start withholding your own taxes, then you won't pay taxes.
Isn't it crazy? That's the reason they've gotten us to comply, is because you don't see the money. So you're like, oh, I'm going to get paid $10 an hour. Okay, but really you're taking home $7 an hour, you know, and you're like, well, I guess this is what it is. If you saw that cash, if you saw those, you know, $100, $200, whatever it is, taken from your paycheck every week, you'd be like, wait a minute, this is not okay.
Which it's interesting because, I mean, that's, and then you see what your company actually pays for your taxes too. Because I mean, I have an S Corp LLC. And so when I pay myself a paycheck. I am a W-2 employee of my own company. And so I see it every time. I'm like, okay, I'm going to pay myself this much money. But wait, why am I only getting this much?
And that's the thing, is the company pays the same amount you paid. They paid it as well. So let's say they took $200 from your paycheck. That's another $200 that your company's paying for you. So that's $400 this week that you missed out on getting for you. The government has. And then you find out that you're killing beagles, little cute beagle puppies with your tax dollars. And I don't know how this doesn't infuriate people. Obviously, we're killing people too. We like to put bombs on people around the world, but you know, that really doesn't enrage people the way puppies do. And I'm all on that.
No, puppies. Yeah,
I'm all on that. I'm like, what, puppies? No, puppies.
I know. I said puppies, and my dog just looked at me. She's giving me sad eyes. I'm like, oh, sorry.
I know, but like I really like dogs.
I know. I like dogs more. I like dogs more than most people. So
I like all animals a lot. So yeah, I have a hard time knowing that my government is, and I mean, that's not the only one. We've heard the stories of like, there was, what was it? They were giving cocaine to migratory birds to see how they'd act. Listen, I don't know what you're trying to prove giving cocaine to migratory birds, but can we not? Can we give them cocaine to be, you know, not birds? I don't know. I'm sure clubs that would be like, please, we'll take it. Thank you.
Well, where's PETA? I haven't seen anything from PETA on this stuff. Where are they at?
The same place where Black Lives Matter is on Cuba. By the way, the vast majority of Cuba is people of color. Where is Black Lives Matter when those people in Cuba are going through this horrible, you know, being put into jail and being disappeared and all this stuff? These organizations are so full of poop. I don't know how else to say this.
We know this,
It's
well,
not.
And Black Lives Matters is a Marxist organization, so they should be able to go and talk to the regime down there and say, why aren't you doing this?
Yeah, because they're not going to, because they don't care, because we've already crossed this bridge. You know, it's like politics it's disgusting. It's people wanting power, and they'll tell you whatever you want to hear. But then when it actually comes to it, because I mean, when Black Lives Matter started as the movement, right? The overall movement, not the organization, because I like to draw a distinction between the two.
Yeah, I do too. Black Lives Matter Inc.
Right. Black Lives Matter Inc. is a problem. Black Lives Matter, the movement, I'm all on, you know, I'm on board there 100%. All lives matter, Black Lives Matter. This country has had a horrible, horrible way of treating people. And I think that was one of the things that you mentioned in your review of the Dave Chappelle podcast, because he made a good point about that. He's like, you know, of course I would butcher the joke, but he was like saying like, if all the slaves needed to be free was like body oil.
Yeah, it's who knew if all we needed to do to have equality was some body oil and glitter or something like that.
I mean, he made a point where slavery lasted much longer than, you know, this discrimination or whatever. Like his point was pretty clear. I'm not going to try and make it. I'm going to butcher it, and then I'm going to have hate mail. So instead, I'm just going to say, listen, there's a lot of oppression in this country. We've had it in every group. Women have had oppression, you know, people of color, LGBT, like there's been a group that has been oppressed always. So like, I agree we all need to stand up for Black lives. We all need to stand up for whatever person is being discriminated against, because that's the problem, is that discrimination. There should be equal laws for everybody. And this is where I have a problem, even with the LGBT community, even with the Black community, even with the Hispanic community. I have a problem with laws that say this particular group deserves something above another one. Now, I have to say that that sounds very harsh, but I just think that laws should be written so that everybody is equal. Everybody should be equal. That's it. It should just be like, you know, either if this thing is illegal, it's illegal for everybody. If this thing is legal, it's legal for everyone. In the state of Florida, for example, it's illegal for me to put a cannabis seed in the ground and grow a tree. But if I had $60 million and could buy a cannabis license, then it's free for me to grow it. So in this case, it's a discrimination against individuals with a preference towards these large corporations with a lot of money. That should be illegal. It should be either everybody can grow cannabis or nobody can. And of course, I'm on the everybody should be able to grow cannabis. But that's absolutely, you know, that's the idea.
Well, the current administration, they're actually saying the quiet part out loud, because they just issued in their gender initiative or something like that yesterday. I saw it, and it doesn't say, it says, and this is the quiet part out loud, is the first part is equity. And that's the issue. They don't want equality. They want equity. They want equal results.
Cuba has
the
equal
thing
results.
about it is, you'll never see equal results. And the people that are fighting for Democrat policies don't realize that, I mean, the real systemic racism comes from Democrats. It's public school systems without vouchers. Like, how do you not see that public school systems with unions without vouchers is systemic racism? Where do you think they send bad teachers that they can't fire? They send them to those schools, and then they beg for more money in those Democrat-run cities, and then they start propping, and it's just a continuous cycle. They continue to send this stuff, and they don't want those people to get out. They don't want them to choose what schools to go to.
It's both, because Democrats and Republicans are part of why this system is the way it is. It's not just one or the other. You know, Republicans aren't exactly in the forefront of a voucher system. Now they are, because they're realizing that people are getting smarter to this whole issue.
Yeah.
But I don't think that they've historically been in favor of this. I mean, imagine how crazy it is. Like, we distribute help for those who can't, for example, food stamps, right? We help people who need the help. But we don't tell them, you have to go to this supermarket in the corner, or if not, it's not going to work. We give them a card that says, this is filled with this much money. Go spend it in any supermarket that'll take it. Why are we forcing kids to go to this school that maybe doesn't work for them? You know, forget about the whole, you know, it to me, it's just such it's so just right there in front of our faces, and we're not looking at it. You have a child that maybe wants to go to an art school, but you're like, no, your school is going to be this one here, because this is the one where your parents can afford to live. But maybe a few blocks down, there's this amazing art school that you wanted to go to, or dance, or whatever. You know, or a trade school, because trades are also pretty important. Why aren't we letting parents parent their kids? And it goes back to that. You need to get government out of your house, out of your bedroom, out of parenting. In Cuba, for example, and I keep coming back to this because I see the similarities, and maybe this is where, you know, I can help bring it home for people, is in Cuba, you don't own your children. Your children belong to the state. And in America, an American school system, our kids belong to the state. You as a parent don't get to make the decision. You don't, unless you make the decision of sending them to private schools or homeschooling. In that case, you own your kids. In Cuba, for example, when you go to a doctor, say you have a cancer diagnosis, and the doctor doesn't want to tell you that you have cancer because you're going to die, and he doesn't want to tell you, they don't tell you, they tell your family. And most of the times your family won't tell you, because, you know, the culture is like, oh, well, he's going to die, so we shouldn't tell him. Imagine that happening here in America. Well, it kind of is. With the vaccines. Now, you don't get to make a choice for your own healthcare. In Cuba, you don't get to make a choice. So I just kind of keep hammering this message home, because I just want people to understand the government is not your friend. And if they can take all of everything from you, they will. And the proof is in the pudding. Look at your kids not being able to choose what school they want to go to.
Yep.
for us.
Or in any country that has universal health care, they make the decisions. Look at the Charlie Gard case in England is the biggest one you always come back to. But
Yes.
it's those cases like that prove that you don't have control over your kids. You can't decide what's best for them. They are wards of the state in most countries.
Yeah, exactly it. They are wards of the state. You put the words right in my mouth. Thank you so much. It is that you all of a sudden, all those decisions that we consider, you know, and I have 4 kids. So this is something that's near and dear to me. The fact that I don't want somebody to be able to tell me what to do. So the reason I got into cannabis legalization issues was because I went to a cannabis convention and I met this mother, Giselle Delgadillo, who was one of the main founders here in Florida of Canna Moms. Her son was diagnosed with Dravet syndrome. It's a very extreme form of epilepsy, to the point this child was having 200 to 300 seizures a day. And the one thing that could help her child was cannabis. And that day was the day I became an advocate for cannabis, because I sat there and I watched her talk about how cannabis was the only thing that could help her kid, but she was risking her freedom to be able to achieve it, to be able to get it. She'd have to get it from California. So she's breaking cannabis laws and then transferring from California into Florida. Thankfully now she gets it. She's a legal patient, so I can say this because she's not going to go to jail now. But I sat there and I was like, can you imagine having a kid, you know, your child,
No.
you know that this thing would help them, but there's a group of people that have decided, no, you can't get this thing. You don't get to make a decision to save your child's life. And that is what is happening over and over and over in this country for so long. And it's disgusting. As a mother of 4, there's nothing I wouldn't do. Let me put it that way. I'm not gonna incriminate myself here, but there's nothing I would do for my child to save their lives. Like, it's just, sorry. To have somebody, just because they won an office, say, no, you don't get to give them this medicine because we've decided that it's bad. With no proof. Nobody's ever died from cannabis, but here we are. So I just, man.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you completely. I mean, because I have high functioning anxiety because I was in the Army for 7 years, and that doesn't help, but I have high functioning anxiety and I don't take medication for it anymore, but mostly because I go to the gym and when I start getting anxiety, yes, I vape. So
Great for you. I don't vape for anxiety, but I do smoke. I've had several medical conditions, and I currently still have my thyroid thanks to cannabis. I was going to need surgery. I was on, like, hey, within the next 6 months, we're going to remove your thyroid type of deal. And then I found this wonderful cannabis doctor here in Florida, and she told me, hey, why don't you give this a go? And I did. And I still have my thyroid. And actually now there's nothing wrong with it. So I'm not saying that cannabis cured me, because that would be wrong. I am not legally allowed to say that. So cannabis didn't cure me. However, my thyroid is in my neck and I am doing okay. Like, I just think that it's so ridiculous, this whole prohibition thing.
Yeah.
And
it doesn't make any sense, but all right. We've been going for about an hour and 20 minutes now. So.
We are like on a roll.
Oh, no, I can talk for hours, so that's usually the problem.
Same here. Same. Especially about these subjects. These are like all subjects that they're fascinating to me.
It really is. And there's so many we could talk about. Like, we could talk for days about everything, Now your guys' podcast, your guys' YouTube channel. So I tried to watch it. Now, do you guys have English subtitles on there?
We don't. So that's we do 2. So we do one in English on the LP's main page on YouTube, which is Latin Libertarians. Okay. We do that in English. And that one we try, the goal of that channel is to educate libertarians and non-libertarians alike on the issues happening in Latin America. So basically news, or a news angle with a libertarian twist. There's very little, I know there's podcasters everywhere, but whatever. We're trying to do this thing on libertarian, trying to bring in more Hispanic people into the Libertarian Party. And then the one we do on Thursday nights, that's Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. LP main page on YouTube. And then on Thursday nights, we do Libertario Hispano, which is completely in Spanish, which is the one you were trying to watch. Don't recommend speak Spanish. That one is directed towards people in Latin America and in the United States that speak Spanish. That Spanish is their main language, so that they are educated on, again, same thing, pretty much. We do the same thing in both languages, but that one is more geared towards Hispanics in general, but particularly Hispanics that want to learn more about libertarianism. We found during Dr. Jorgensen's campaign, both Zach and I worked on her campaign in 2020. We found that, number one, the Libertarian Party was not reaching out to the Hispanic community, which is a huge problem, because really Republicans and Democrats only do it once every 4 years. So there's a huge opportunity. But also at the end of her campaign, we were told that the largest segment that grew for the Libertarian Party for votes was the Hispanic community. So I don't know if we had anything to do with that. But I wear this title very proudly. We are the party that Hispanics are looking for. We are the party that welcome to this country, the land of opportunity. And we're not capitalizing on that. So I'm here to capitalize on it. No shame in my game. I'm here to win all the Hispanics I can for the Libertarian Party, because I firmly believe that the Libertarian Party is where Hispanics need to be.
Yeah, I agree. I think everybody should be here, though. So
everyone should be here, but I get it. You know, if you're like, oh no, everyone should not be here. If you are firmly onto the left or firmly onto the right, maybe this isn't the party for you. There are authoritarians on both sides, the far extremes, that I don't think that they would like this much freedom.
Yep, the social conservatives and the communists, so or the progressives.
And the authoritarians. I mean,
they're all authoritarians.
Yeah, I mean, Hitler was like super on the right, so
yeah.
There's bad on both extremes, because some people think only the left is bad, you know, and then the left think only the right is bad. And I'm here to say no, they're bad on equal opportunity hater here. They're both bad.
Absolutely.
The extreme of anything is always bad.
Yeah, and so I tried to watch your show. I'm like, I understand Spanish a little bit,
but we speak for Spanish people. So it's like
yeah, I cannot. I'm like too fast.
We try.
When I was working for a company, we actually we were outsourcing some stuff down to Miami to a third party vendor, and I was working with them, and they came up to our site, and he was explaining the process to one of the people that was going to work for him. And I was standing right there, and he was speaking Spanish, and I'm like, I could understand what he was saying. I'm like, yeah, that's right. Yeah, you said it right. The process, you explained it right. That's good.
You know, there's over 20. When people think that like Hispanics, we all get kind of grouped together, but there's 20 countries that make up Spanish-speaking Latin America and Ibero-America. So, the Iberian Peninsula, my bad. So, and then the Caribbean as well. So imagine 20 different countries. It's like if they group together England and Australia and the United States and every English-speaking country, they put it together, and it's like, you guys. And that's how they treat us. And I get this all the time. I'm Cuban.
Yeah.
I grew up in Venezuela, so I have two of the cultures, but then neither of the two cultures that I'm from eat like spicy food. So I'll go out with like people who are American, and they'll be like, you don't like spicy food? I thought you're like Hispanic. And I'm like, I'm not Mexican. I'm not Peruvian. I'm not the country.
Yeah. Well, that's actually that's just it's the same way, because two of my best friends, one is Mexican, and the girl that she sees, and my other best friend is Colombian, and it's very different. It is. It's like she's like, I don't like spicy food either. I'm like, wait. It's the same. I fell into that trap.
we have like not terribly different. Like obviously we can communicate it, but it's a similar thing to like if you go to Australia and you're like, what are they saying? Because they have some sayings that are different. You know, like cheers in America is up your beep.
Yeah.
Words. But you know, it's just different ways of saying things, and we have the same in Latin America. So we get grouped together, and we're not exactly the same.
Not all the same. No, you're right. And well, that was even I learned too, because they were talking to each other, and one goes, "Why do you say it like that?" like asking why she like it would be the same thing, that different accents between different countries and everything like that. And even I was doing Spanish Pod 101 because I used to be able to speak Spanish really well when I was in high school, and then it's like when you don't use it, you lose it. So then I'm back at square one, and so I'm doing like Spanish Pod 101, and they're in Argentina, so it's like multiple stuff. And I actually worked for a company that we had a site in Argentina, so I would hear them speaking Spanish all the time, and I'm like trying to pick up the differences in lingo and stuff like that. So it's difficult.
Here, maybe if you're not Hispanic, because then you're focusing on words, maybe not the way they're being said.
Yeah.
But even for me, when I moved to Venezuela, I knew more Cuban Spanish. Now, if you talk to me, my Spanish is very Venezuelan. But when I moved to Venezuela, Cubans have this tendency to turn English words into Spanish. So we'll say for like a parking, like that's it. But the actual word is estacionamiento. So when I got to Venezuela, like el parqueo or el parking, and they're like, what are you talking about? It's this, So even for people who speak Spanish, it's like,
I hear, and you hear that all the time when you speak to somebody that speaks Spanish too, especially when they're in the U.S. It's like they throw in English words in there now and then. You're like, wait, what? Wait, I heard that one.
I love that of
the
like
Spanglish stuff, right?
Yeah, the Spanglish. But we're not the only ones that do like the ish.
Oh no.
My brother-in-law, he's Indian, and when he speaks to his parents, like every there's a few words in there that I'm like, I got that one. I understood that one word. I got it. Like I'm totally Indian now, and no, not at all.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I mean, and I grew up in Michigan and I live in Georgia, so I mean, I live in Atlanta, so it's kind of more northern anyways, but you get out of Atlanta and it's like a different world, a different language even here.
You guys in Atlanta have a lot of like Mexican or Central American immigrants. Mm-hmm. So even the Spanish that's spoken, because I love going to Atlanta, and my sister and brother-in-law live up there. So, Alpharetta, but so
okay, so right by me, yeah.
And so when I go over there, it's like, she'll tell me like, oh, I miss living in Miami, and it's like, but you have all this like Hispanic culture, and then it's like, no, but it's different. Like, they have more of like the Mexican foods, and then she can't get like Cuban foods, and I'm like, oh, sucks to be you.
Well, there's a new Cuban restaurant that just that opened by the baseball stadium, so there is a place to get some Cuban food.
Oh, yeah.
And then
that's kind of far for Alpharetta.
Yeah, it's about 20 minutes. Yeah.
Oh my God! But your traffic in Georgia is just, in Atlanta especially, is just off the chains.
Yeah. And you're coming from Miami, because the only time I've ever driven through Miami, it took me forever to get down, but it wasn't the freeway. I took the scenic route, and since I was in Miami, I was actually driving down to Key West. I drove down A1A and then went all the way down A1A. That's the only way to get to
Key West. There's one way in and one way out.
No, I drove right by Miami Beach. I was like, I'm going to do the
okay, you went the long
Beachfront Avenue. Yeah.
That's a long way. Okay. Yes. But in Miami during like rush hour, it's going to take you hours to get anywhere. But then like right now, it's 7:30. If I go out anywhere, I can make it there quickly. I mean, we don't have Atlanta, like that crazy traffic you guys have.
Well, yeah, ours is very similar to, I don't know. I guess I'm just used to it because it's gotten to be, I also like going through Midtown. Like if I'm going to Midtown, I get off on exit 250, which that's where all the traffic starts. So I generally bypass the traffic that way anyways. And I stay north of the city too. So
good for you. Cause I mean, seriously, you guys have some traffic. Oh boy. Like anytime it's like, it's just going to take me so long to get all the way to Alpharetta. It's just so, and it's not that far. Yeah. It's just traffic. Oh
yeah. God. I mean, I've left the city before, and I'm like, when I leave going up I-75, it's like, and I'm leaving at the north, like right at the 285 I-75. Like that's where I used to work. And so when you just go north, I'm like, you have to account for 2 hours just to get out of the city. Like I went up to Asheville one time, and I'm like, it took me 2 hours just to get out of the city.
Oh my God. Can you just say that the one good thing about COVID was all that time that we could actually drive around and not get traffic? Like, if there was, I got to look at the silver lining. The one thing that COVID did was for a while you could go out and there was nobody on the street. It was
Oh,
nice.
that is true. Yeah.
It was nice.
Now, if you ever drive through Atlanta, though, you have to go straight through the city because there's no reason to take the bypasses, because the bypasses don't bypass anything. Actually, they have more traffic. So.
Oh, you're making it so hard for me to go like Atlanta. And I love Atlanta, but oh my God,
I know.
it's just too much. I think we've gone an hour and 35 minutes.
Yes.
We're like, we're going to end this soon. We're going to just end right now.
I know. And what's interesting, because then we'll end the broadcast and we'll continue to talk for an hour and a half because that's what always happens when I talk to people.
Exactly. I know. At least we're doing it now live so everyone can hear what we're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Well, where else can everybody find you?
Twitter is my main spot these days. But you can find me on pretty much any social media. I'm just Bueno for Miami. It's a double entendre. Bueno in Spanish is good. So I'm good for Miami.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. That's kind of my place. I'm really on Twitter a lot, probably more than I should be. I'm ashamed to say that I'm probably on Twitter most of the time.
Oh my God, me too. I've actually started peeling away from Twitter more and more, and I realize, like, yeah, it's better that way.
I love
it's just better for your mental health. I know, it's so hard. And I'm having surgery next month, and it's going to be like,
we didn't even talk about half the stuff that we were like. I was like, we should talk about Dave Chappelle because that was like so great. I didn't even get into it. How much talking are we going to do?
I know. Well, we talked about it, but I know that's the problem is we just go and we just talk. But it was a good conversation. So
it was great. And again, if people haven't watched you talk about the Dave Chappelle show, they should, because I think that it's a nuanced conversation, and I think you broke it down really, really well.
Well, thank you. And everybody should go support People for Cuba, as well as I think I put a link to your campaign.
Both websites are down
description
at the moment. So if they're not working, give me a few days. People for Cuba, we migrated it over to a new website, and the Martha Bueno one, I have yet to launch it. It's okay. So much. Find me on Twitter, guys. I'm there.
Just go talk and it'll be out.
It'll be out eventually. I promise. I'm working on it. I got a team working on it. I'm a perfectionist, and I want this site to be like awesome and
perfect. Yeah, I get you.
All
right. And if you guys don't, make sure you guys click that subscribe button below, and we will see you guys next time.